My name is Sarah Jenkins, and I am a testament to the powerful, and at times painful, truth that family can be a battlefield of expectations. For too long, I believed our family dinners were a sanctuary of connection, a sacred time for sharing and love. What I failed to recognize was that for my family, these gatherings were meticulously crafted traps, and I was the unsuspecting prey. The moment of my awakening came with a chilling finality. My mother, Evelyn, her face a mask of cold resolve, slid a sheaf of papers across the polished mahogany table. "Your sister's $38,000 debt," she announced, her voice as sharp and unyielding as a shard of ice, "is your responsibility now." Across from me, my sister, Rachel, leaned back in her chair, a slow, triumphant smirk spreading across her face, as if the game had been played and won long ago. When I looked them in the eye and said a single, defiant word, "No," my mother's hand shot out, the slap across my face a physical betrayal more profound and shocking than any words could ever be. I did not yell. I did not cry. My spirit, forged in a silent resistance that had been building for years, would not allow it. I simply rose from the table. My posture straight and my gaze unwavering, walked to the front door, and let it slam shut behind me, the sound a resonant period on 15 years of profound injustice. 2 years have since passed. I now stand in the quiet comfort of my own Portland townhouse, a fortress I built with my own hands, while their world, once so seemingly stable, crumbles under the weight of their own choices. Stay with me, my friends, and I will share how a silent manipulation became my ultimate liberation. Before we continue, I want to know where you are listening from and what city you are in. I am so humbled to know how far my story travels and how deeply it resonates with so many of you. Please, I ask that you give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience and triumph. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. And in the comments below, I invite you to share your own stories of family, of challenge, and of claiming your own worth. Your story is not just your own, it is a beacon for others. The origin of my rebellion was a simple spiral notebook, an unassuming journal I started at 16, hidden beneath my mattress in our family home in Boston. I called it my revenge ledger. This was no ordinary diary of teenage angst. It was a chronicle of every slight, every unfair decision, every calculated choice my parents made that favored my sister, Rachel, while burdening me with expectation. It was a ledger of evidence, a meticulous blueprint to understand their game and, one day, to turn it against them. My first entry began the day I got my first job at a local grocery store, pushing carts and ringing up groceries for 20 hours a week after school. My hands would ache from the repetitive strain of scanning items, but I persevered, saving $3,000 over 2 years. My pride was a quiet but constant companion. I believed my effort would finally earn their respect. With my meager savings, I bought a used Toyota, its engine rattling a defiant tune. I was proud of my independence. Then, for Rachel's 18th birthday, my mother and father handed her the keys to a brand new Ford. No questions asked, no lessons learned. She needs reliable transport for her art classes. My father, Richard, declared, his voice firm as if my after-school shifts were somehow less important than her artistic pursuits. In my ledger, I wrote, "They justify her gifts with potential, but my work gets lectures about responsibility. This is a pattern. They invest in her future, not mine." That entry set the tone. I didn't cry or complain. I observed, analyzed, and documented. Each page was a weapon, silently sharpening my understanding of their bias. I noted how my mother, Evelyn, would buy Rachel new paints and brushes, while I was left to score clearance racks for school clothes. "You're so practical, Sarah," my mother would say, her smile masking the sting. "Your sister needs to fit in with her creative crowd." My ledger's analysis was sharp and unsparing. They frame my sacrifice as maturity, her indulgence as necessity. This is deliberate, not accidental. At 18, I headed off to a prestigious university, my scholarships totaling $7,000 for the first year. Even with the aid, I still needed to borrow $50,000 to cover tuition and books. To make ends meet, I worked 2 jobs, stocking shelves at the campus bookstore and steaming milk at a coffee shop near Washington Square. My days were a blur of work and study, starting at 5:30 in the morning and ending well past midnight. My sister, meanwhile, started college 2 years later at a private art school. My parents co-signed a lease for her one-bedroom apartment, 10 minutes from campus, and furnished it with new everything. During one of our weekly calls, my mother's voice bubbled with excitement. We're helping her focus on her art without distractions, she chirped. When I asked how Rachel managed her rent, my father cut in. We're covering it, he said. Her scholarship handles tuition, but living expenses are on us. In my ledger, I scribbled, they pay for her comfort while I drown in loans. Pattern: my struggle is expected, her success is funded. The ledger grew heavier during my junior year. I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen one night, when I was home for a rare weekend. We've saved enough for her art school and exhibits, my father said, his voice low and satisfied. I stepped into the room, unable to stay silent. What about my college fund? I asked, my voice betraying the hope I still held. My mother paused, then said, yours is smaller, Sarah. You've always been so capable. My ledger entry that night was a final, cold revelation. They planned my fund to be limited, banking on my capability to survive. This isn't fairness. It's a strategy to prioritize her. By 28, I was done being the family's scapegoat. I didn't let them know it. My ledger had taught me their game, to favor Rachel and to burden me. So, I shifted from victim to strategist, building a plan to outmaneuver them without a single raised voice or confrontation. I stopped complaining, letting my parents believe I had accepted my role as the responsible one. Their praise. You're so independent, Sarah, my mother would say, became my camouflage. Behind this mask, I was crafting a fortress of financial independence, gathering intelligence to predict their next move. My goal wasn't to confront them. It was to be ready when they inevitably came to me for help, assuming I would fold. My first step was cutting off any hint of weakness. I never mentioned my struggles, not the late nights debugging code in my tiny San Francisco studio or the ramen dinners I ate to save every cent of my $42,000 salary. Instead, I simply nodded through my mother's weekly calls, letting her ramble about my sister's latest art exhibit or my nephew, Ethan's, new tricycle. That's great, I would say, my voice steady while I jotted notes in my mind. I knew silence was power. They would reveal more if I didn't push back. When my father asked if I was managing okay, I lied. Everything's fine. I wasn't giving them an opening to pity or control me. Financial independence became my obsession. My student loans still loomed large at $45,000, but I attacked them with a renewed precision. I downloaded investing apps, learned about index funds, and funneled every bonus into extra loan payments. My spreadsheet tracked every expense. Rent, groceries, even coffee runs, ensuring I would be debt-free in 7 years. At work, I volunteered for tough projects, impressing my manager, a woman named Susan, who saw my drive and my quiet determination. By 29, I landed a senior IT role in Los Angeles with an $85,000 salary, a salary that let me rent a one-bedroom apartment with a sliver of an ocean view. I didn't tell my family. They didn't need to know I was building a life they couldn't touch. To stay ahead, I turned into a detective of their financial patterns. Rachel's Instagram was a gold mine. Posts of new designer bags, expensive art supplies, and weekend getaways with her husband, David, screamed reckless spending. I cross-referenced this with my mother's casual mentions during calls. Your sister is struggling with gallery cuts, but we're helping with their rent. I calculated that their house in a Boston suburb likely had a $2,000 monthly mortgage, covered partly by my parents' savings. My father's voice tightened when he mentioned his upcoming retirement, a subtle but telling clue that they were stretching themselves thin. My ledger had taught me their greatest weakness. They would always bail Rachel out, no matter the cost to themselves. I waited, knowing that dependence would be their downfall. Relationships were another front. In San Francisco, I had met a kind architect named Michael who lived down the hall. Over coffee dates that turned into dinners, I opened up about my family's bias. That's not normal, he said, His brow furrowed. Parents shouldn't play favorites like that. His words validated me, but I kept him at arm's length. I couldn't afford emotional dependence. When he pushed for weekend trips I couldn't fund without derailing my loan plan, we parted ways amicably. I wasn't bitter, I was focused. Instead, I leaned on Rebecca, a friend from a Los Angeles running group. She listened to my stories without judgment, offering sharp advice. They're using you as a safety net. Don't let them. Her clarity fueled my resolve. I maintained a facade of family loyalty to keep them off guard. I sent my nephew, Ethan, a stuffed animal for his first birthday, ordered online to avoid a visit. When my mother invited me to Thanksgiving, I cited work deadlines, sparing myself the $300 flight. "We wish you'd prioritize family," my father said, his tone heavy with guilt. I smiled through the phone. "I'll try next time." But I was playing the long game. Every call, every social media post, every hint of their spending was data. I knew Rachel's lifestyle was unsustainable, and my parents' blind support would drain them. My plan was simple: stay invisible, grow stronger, and wait for their inevitable overreach. By 30, I was ready to build my empire, a fortress of success that my family couldn't breach. The plan was in motion: stay under their radar, grow stronger, and let their dependence on me become their weakness. I threw myself into my career, my finances, and a new circle of friends, all while wearing the mask of the dutiful daughter. They thought I was still their reliable Sarah, but I was crafting a life they'd never touch. My IT job had me coding late into the night, but my hustle paid off. My manager, Susan, noticed my knack for solving complex bugs and handed me a lead role on a major client project. By 30, I had climbed to a senior developer position, earning $85,000 a year. The raise let me trade my cramped studio for a one-bedroom apartment with a balcony overlooking a quiet courtyard. I furnished it with secondhand finds, each piece a symbol of my independence. I didn't tell my parents about the promotion. They'd only see it as a chance to lean on me later. Instead, I sent generic text, "Work's going well." Their replies always about my sister's art shows, or Ethan's milestones confirmed they weren't paying attention. My financial strategy was relentless. My student loans, now down to $30,000, were my main target. I poured every extra dollar, every bonus, every tax refund, even the income from side gigs building small business websites, into paying them off. I lived lean, cooking budget meals and skipping vacations. My spreadsheet was my lifeline, tracking rent, utilities, and a small emergency fund that hit $5,000 by my 31st birthday. I didn't need their help, and I wouldn't give them a reason to think I did. Meanwhile, I overheard my mother on a call. Her voice was strained. "Your sister's gallery isn't paying much these days," she said. I didn't ask for details. I knew she'd never admit they were still covering Rachel's bills. Building a chosen family became my anchor. In Los Angeles, my running group introduced me to Sarah, a graphic designer who became a close friend. Over coffee, she'd share her own stories of cutting off toxic relatives. Her advice was sharp. Don't let them guilt you into being their bank. Rebecca, now a constant in my life, invited me to her book club where I met people who valued me for my ideas, not my utility. These connections were different. No expectations, no scorekeeping. They filled a void my family never could. When my mother called to ask why I skipped Christmas, I blamed a tight work schedule, avoiding the truth that I couldn't afford the $500 flight, and I didn't want their pity. "Family's important, Sarah," she said, oblivious to the irony. To keep my cover, I played the part of the good daughter from a distance. I mailed Ethan a puzzle set for his second birthday, ordered from a discount site. I commented, "Congrats," on Rachel's social media posts about her new art series, even as I noticed her designer shoes and luxury vacations. During calls, I asked vague questions like, "How's the house holding up?" My father's answers hinted at strain. "Mortgage rates are tough, but we're managing." I didn't push, but I filed it away. Their spending on Rachel's lifestyle, Ethan's toys, their own renovated kitchen. It was all a ticking time bomb. I knew they'd overreach soon, and I'd be ready to step out of their trap. My career kept climbing. I led a team of junior developers in Los Angeles, delivering a software overhaul that earned our firm a national client. Susan pulled me aside after the pitch. "You're going places, Sarah," she said. Her belief in me was a stark contrast to my parents' indifference. I didn't share the win with them. Why bother when they would only redirect the conversation to Rachel's latest painting? Instead, I celebrated with Sarah and Rebecca over cheap wine in my apartment, laughing about office politics and planning a hiking trip. These moments, free from the crushing weight of family obligation, fueled me. By 31, their trap was set, and I walked into it with my eyes wide open. My parents' email hit my inbox with the subject line, "Urgent Family Matter," a phrase that sent my pulse racing with a familiar dread. Someone sick, someone hurt. I called my father immediately, my voice tight. "Is everyone okay?" I asked. "We're fine," he said, too calm, "but we need to talk in person. Can you come to Boston next weekend?" I hesitated, my gut screaming caution, but I couldn't say no without seeming cold. "I'll fly in Saturday," I said, booking a morning flight and a same-day return, sensing I'd need an escape. The flight to Boston was smooth, but anxiety churned in my stomach as I drove my rental car up the familiar driveway of our family home. The same red brick facade, the same manicured lawn, but it felt like enemy territory. I gripped my purse, steeling myself, and rang the bell. My mother, Evelyn, opened the door, her smile warm but strained. "Sarah, you're here," she said, pulling me into a quick hug. My father, Richard, appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Good to see you, kid," he said, his tone overly cheerful. They led me inside, and I noticed the changes: a new leather sofa, polished hardwood floors, a gleaming chandelier. Their renovation screamed money. Yet my father had hinted at tight finances on our last call. My suspicions grew. We sat in the living room, making small talk about Boston traffic and their neighbor's new dog. I kept my answers short, watching their faces for clues. At 5 sharp, my sister Rachel arrived with her husband David and their 3-year-old son Ethan. "Hey, Sarah," she said, her voice bright, but her eyes darting away. David gave a curt nod, holding Ethan, who clutched a new toy truck. My mother swooped in, scooping Ethan up. "There's my favorite boy," she cooed, carrying him to see a new playroom upstairs. My father slapped David on the back, steering him to the patio. "Got a new grill to show you," he said. I stood alone, ignored, the familiar exclusion settling in my chest. Dinner was served at 6, a spread of Rachel's favorites: roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and pecan pie. None of my old preferences like grilled vegetables or pasta. The conversation revolved around Ethan's preschool antics and Rachel's upcoming art fair. "You should come, Sarah," my mother said almost as an afterthought. "If work allows," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Ethan grew fussy, pushing his plate away, and my sister stood. "I'll take him upstairs to play," she said, glancing at my mother. "I'll help," my mother said, following her out. The room shifted, the focus narrowing. My father cleared his throat, his eyes meeting mine. "Sarah, we need to talk about something serious," he said, his voice low. My sister returned alone, sitting across from me, her posture stiff. My father continued. "Your sister's hit a rough patch. The gallery cut her hours and she's got some debt." I nodded, waiting. My mother slid back into her seat, pulling a folder from under a serving tray. "It's $38,000 in credit card debt," she said, her voice firm but laced with a hint of guilt. "From art supplies, some travel things for Ethan." I glanced at the folder, my heart sinking as I saw loan papers with my name already typed in the co-signer's slot. "We can't cover it," my father said, leaning forward. "With my retirement coming and some medical bills, we're stretched thin." My sister finally spoke, her tone sharp. "You're doing so well, Sarah. It's just temporary until I get back on my feet." Her words echoed their old playbook. My success was their safety net. I scanned the table, noticing the new silverware, the expensive wine they'd poured. Their renovated house, Ethan's toys, Rachel's designer earrings. All screamed they had money, just not for their own mess. "Why me?" I asked, keeping my voice even. My mother's face hardened. Because family steps up, she said, pushing the papers toward me. You don't have kids or a mortgage. You can handle this. My sister's lips twitched, a hint of a smirk as if she'd already won. I saw it then, the trap premeditated, built on years of expecting me to carry their burdens. They had planned this, banking on my sense of duty. My ledger had predicted it. Their spending would outpace their means, and I would be their fix. I didn't react, just stared at the papers. My mind raced, connecting their renovated home to my father's lies about tight finances. This wasn't a family meeting. It was an ambush, and they'd crafted it to guilt me into signing. I thought of Rebecca's advice. Don't let them make you their bank. Every entry in my ledger, every sacrifice I'd made, screamed that I owed them nothing. I pushed the papers back, my voice steady. I need to think about it, I said, buying time. My mother's eyes narrowed, but my father nodded. Take a minute, he said, expecting compliance. I excused myself to the bathroom, splashing water on my face, my reflection calm but resolute. This was the moment I'd prepared for. Their trap had exposed them, and I was ready to walk away. I stood in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. My face was calm, but my mind was a torrent of memories, a lifetime of slights rushing back in a single moment. This was it. The culmination of my revenge ledger. This was the moment I had prepared for, the trap they had set with a lifetime of conditional love. I took a deep, steadying breath, splashed cold water on my face, and walked back to the dinner table. My heart pounded, but my resolve was as solid as concrete. My mother's face was a mask of strained patience. My father looked on, expecting compliance. Rachel simply watched, her smirk a silent, mocking challenge. I sat down and looked at them. I've thought about it, I said, my voice as clear and calm as a still lake, and my answer is no. My mother's face flushed red with a rage that was both familiar and terrifying. No, after everything we've done for you, she shrieked, her voice rising to a crescendo of betrayal. Me gave you a home and education. You're our daughter. This is what family does. Family doesn't lay a trap for one of its own, I countered, my voice firm. Family doesn't build a life on one person's struggle and another's entitlement. This isn't about helping Rachel, it's about you refusing to face the consequences of your choices. The new couch, the chandeliers, the expensive wine. You have money. You just don't have money for your own mess. You want me to be your bank because you taught Rachel that someone else would always be there to clean up her failures. My father's jaw dropped. Rachel's face, for the first time, lost its smug composure. My mother, in a fit of pure, unadulterated fury, lunged across the table, grabbed the papers, and slapped me hard across the face, the sound a sharp, final report. You're trash, she screamed, her voice a raw, unhinged shriek. Get out of this house! Rachel jumped up, shoving me toward the door, her words dripping with a venom I had never heard before. Go live in the trash! My father sat frozen, his eyes on the table, saying nothing. The words, the same ones my mother had thrown at my aunt years ago, hit me like a physical blow. But this time they didn't break me. They freed me. In that moment, watching them, I saw their true natures. My mother's cruel control, my sister's profound entitlement, and my father's quiet cowardice. I was no longer a little girl, terrified of being labeled trash. I was a woman who had built a life on her own terms. Without another word, I walked out, the sound of the door slamming behind me a powerful, final act of liberation. Back in Los Angeles, I rebuilt my life brick by brick, free from the chains of their expectations. 2 years later, at 33, I stood in my own Portland townhouse, a space I'd earned through my own sweat, watching the city skyline glow under a crisp autumn sky. My escape from that Boston dinner wasn't just a walk out. It was a final, decisive cut in a lifetime of profound unfairness. While I thrived, their world unraveled, their own choices burying them. My revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was the silence of my absence, letting their profound dependence on me destroy them. My career soared in Portland. I landed a director role at a tech firm, commanding a $95,000 salary, leading a team on cutting-edge software projects that won industry awards. My townhouse, bought with a down payment from my own savings, had a cozy living room filled with books and art from local markets. My emergency fund hit $15,000, a safety net I had built without a single cent from my parents. I wasn't just surviving. I was flourishing, untethered from their demands. My chosen family grew stronger. Rebecca hosted weekly dinners, where we debated everything from politics to sci-fi novels. My friend Sarah and her partner invited me to their beach house for barbecues, their laughter a balm for years of isolation. These bonds, built on mutual respect, showed me what true family could mean. Therapy with my new counselor, Dr. Grant, became my compass. In our sessions, she helped me unpack the scars of my parents' favoritism. "They trained you to be their safety net," she said, her voice steady. "Your strength was their fallback, but you broke that cycle." I nodded, realizing my worth wasn't tied to their approval. I learned to celebrate my victories. Paying off my last $20,000 in loans, signing the deed to my home. Without needing their validation, my life was finally mine, defined by choices I made, not burdens they assigned. Meanwhile, my family's collapse was as predictable as my ledger had foreseen. Without me to absorb their costs, their financial house of cards fell. Rachel's credit score plummeted below 600 after defaulting on her $38,000 debt. Background checks for art gallery jobs flagged her, leaving her stuck in low-paying freelance gigs. Her marriage to David frayed, their arguments over money spilling onto social media. They sold their car to cover bills, a stark contrast to the luxury they had flaunted. My parents, drained by years of bailing Rachel out, faced their own reckoning. Their retirement fund, gutted by her mortgage payments and medical bills, left them scrambling. My father's voice, once confident, cracked during a rare call to a mutual friend. "I might have to sell the house." My mother started marriage counseling, but neighbors whispered about their heated fights, a social embarrassment in their tight-knit Boston circle. Their attempts to reach me were desperate, not remorseful. Unknown numbers lit up my new phone, but I blocked them immediately, leaving voicemails I never answered. "Sarah, we need to talk." My mother's voice pleaded in one, a message I deleted without a second thought. Rachel sent an email through an old work address, begging for a loan just to get by. No apologies, no acknowledgement of their years of bias, just more demands. I didn't respond. They had spent decades teaching me to be their fixer, but I had unlearned that lesson. My silence was their punishment, forcing them to face the void I had once filled. The final twist came a year later, when a Christmas card arrived, forwarded from my old Los Angeles address. It featured a stage photo of my mother, father, Rachel, David, and Ethan. Their smiles were forced, their holiday sweaters mismatched. Inside, a printed note boasted about my nephew's preschool and my sister's new projects, but my mother's handwritten scroll betrayed their desperation. "Family is about second chances. Call us." I returned it, unopened, marked, "Wrong address." They weren't seeking forgiveness. They wanted my wallet. Their collapse wasn't my doing. It was the natural consequence of their choices, exposed by my absence. Standing on my townhouse balcony, I toasted myself with a glass of wine, the Portland lights reflecting my newfound freedom. My revenge wasn't destruction. It was letting their world crumble without me there to prop it up. I had built a life of purpose, surrounded by people who valued me, not my utility. My counselor, Dr. Grant's words echoed in my heart. "You chose yourself, and that's power." My family's downfall taught me the ultimate lesson. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're survival. My friends, if you have ever had to walk away from toxic ties, know your worth isn't defined by their demands. Share your story below. Have you faced a family trap like mine? How did you break free?